have with us Professor Rajendra Nargunkar and Professor Bhagyalakshmi Venkatesh, faculty at IIM Indore. Professor Nargunkar and Professor Bhagyalakshmi are doing a research on personal branding using social media. Social networking sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter are not exactly new for us, but how exactly do these sites affect an individual's personal branding and image? Let's find that out with them. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with us. Could you tell what this research is all about?
Yeah, I will give you a brief explanation of what we are trying to do. This is an interesting area for both of us because social media are a recent phenomenon in at least India. As far as we know, we have been using it only for 3-4 years, and the implications of what happens on social media, whatever you do there, what impact it has, is not very clear to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So we came across an interesting study which was done abroad on this subject, and we decided that we'll find out more about the impact of branding attempts or maybe even unintended branding which happens on the social media for a variety of people. The original study which we based this on did this with youngsters maybe around 20 years of age or sometimes even less than that. So what we are trying to do here is we have chosen a more varied age group, slightly older people than in that study, but we are trying to find out what impact a person doing something on any of the social media that you mentioned has on their personal brand.
Okay.
The concept of a personal brand is just like any FMCG brand, for example, or a durables brand, or a services brand. For example, McDonald's is a good example of a nationally and internationally known American brand. Similarly, if you as Nupur were to be branded, or she as Bhagyalakshmi were to be branded, or somebody else as a student named whatever, what impact would his attempts to do something on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or somewhere else, how would it turn out for his personal brand in the view of people who are exposed to that brand? Like in the normal brands, consumers are exposed to it.
Yes.
Here the consumer is whoever are your friends or professional networkers.
Whoever go through your profile.
Whoever looks at your profile and the impact that it has on them. So idea is to find out whether there is any conscious way or strategy of doing personal branding for your own brand on any of these media, or all of them if you are a user of multiple media. So that is the basic idea of the study, and right now it's concentrated on anyone at all. We are not segmenting the population being studied by let's say celebrities or any professional of any particular kind. It's anybody. So we have chosen people who agreed to be a part of the study, and we are studying their personal profiles with their permission, and then looking at what impact it has through an independent observation from other sources, and then giving the original people the feedback from them, and then asking whether they originally intended this message to go across. If it did, that's okay. Then if it did not, what would they do to change that personal branding, and how would they attempt to do it through any of the social media? That is the crux of the study. There are of course other aspects to it. For example, we look at the personality through a tested questionnaire called the Big 5 personality questionnaire. We ask the respondent to rate themselves on it. We also get a rating from the external independent source, and we also give them the feedback on that. So there are some 5 major factors, like for example extroversion and neuroticism and agreeableness and so on. So those are also measured, but the idea is to look more at the personal brand that as it happens on any of the major social media. So that's the, in a nutshell.
Sir, do you think it is social media as a tool for projecting a personal brand or an image is underrated amongst people?
I think so, though we have not yet finished our study and we have not reached any firm conclusions yet. We will know a little more about it, but as of now, yes, I think based on what we have read, Again, this pertains to studies done outside India most of the time. But what comes across in these studies is that many people in business, I'm talking of even business people, for example, there's a study which says the use of social media by CEOs of large companies is very little. They don't understand it, they don't know how to use it, and they are unable to actually benefit either themselves or their company corporate brand or anything else, the products which follow that they might be selling. They don't have enough of an understanding to do good to themselves as either a corporate brand or a personal brand for the CEO himself. There are of course exceptions, but as a general rule I think they are underrated. Yes.
Okay. Talking of which, do you think how much social media affects a person, when he is using social media, how much his professional image is benefited or affected by these sites?
To answer that question, I will say you need to classify the user. Say for example, if the user is a early career professional or a student, he does not have any kind of achievement which is connected to his profession to showcase. So in that particular sense, if I connect personal branding to his professional success, typically today what HR managers are doing, when they get a CV from job aspirants, they try to shortlist the applications. Once the applications are shortlisted, then they'll be called for an interview. And before this interview call happens, further to the shortlisting, in order to understand what kind of a person is this and does that person's culture fits with the organizational culture, increasingly HR managers are going to the social media or they check their digital footprint. So in that particular sense, if you have very carefully crafted your image well, I'm not saying a wrong image or a fake image, an authentic image well, then it is easy for an HR person to understand that this person has been in Facebook from say 2008 and he has got what is called as a consistent image throughout. So therefore they are classified as serious, not so serious, silly, and these kind of linking happens to them in the professional domain. So it is good if you follow certain kind of netiquettes or professional etiquettes while you use your social media. And if it is for senior professionals, this is a chance for you to showcase your thought leadership. This is a chance for you to network well, create a very good reputation around yourself, and also share a lot of information with people who look up to you. So in that particular sense, if you use social media with some kind of alertness and care, I feel it will go a long way in creating a good image around you. So professional success may not be directly connected, but definitely it has some contribution to the image you create for yourself. Yeah.
And then does each medium has its own level of impact on what kind of image a person is setting out when somebody, say an HR person, goes through his Facebook account or Twitter account or LinkedIn account? So does each medium has its own level of seriousness that it is taken with?
See, that is what we are understanding from the positioning of each social media. Say for example, if you look at LinkedIn, LinkedIn is generally perceived as a social media for professional networking. And if you look at the layout of the page and what is being shared there, how people behave in the LinkedIn page, they they copy paste their LinkedIn link to their CV. Correct. So it is you can see what is called as a professional networking. So I will say LinkedIn is more professional by nature. Then I will look at, say for example, Twitter. Twitter gives you a chance to comment on what is going on around the world. and the recent things which are happening.
Yes.
Correct. So that also you can share your world view maybe
Yes,
in
your
Twitter.
opinion in
Correct,
particular.
in Twitter. And if you look at blogs as a
Hmm.
very important tool, say for example, if you are expert in some, and over a period of time your blog becomes what is called as a repository of a lot of knowledge, and therefore you can create an image of an expert by focusing on your blog. And finally we will come to Facebook. Facebook is somewhat like an informal platform, correct, where across different categories you will find in Facebook. So I have friends, I have my relatives, and I have some other people, my classmates,
Colleagues.
all of them you can see. And so therefore I think Facebook has a social positioning, LinkedIn has a professional positioning, blog has an expertise kind of a positioning, and Twitter has maybe a worldview kind of a positioning. So I feel they have their own place.
Okay. So, but now that there are so many dimensions added to each of the medium, do you think people are generally unaware about social media as a tool for personal branding? They just know they have a platform to express something about themselves, about what is happening around, but it also is projecting their image. So people are unaware about it.
Yes, I would say, I think I wouldn't say fully unaware. I would say maybe partially unaware or not fully aware.
Yes.
I'm sure there is some awareness at some basic level that what I'm doing is going out somewhere in the virtual world or in the ether.
Yes.
But what I think people don't realize is the kind of impact that it might have. In particular, the professional side, impact on the professional side. For example, an HR manager, and part of our research also involves getting reactions from an HR manager about these people who have responded to the study. So, for example, an HR manager looking at a potential hire from a B school. Let's say the respondent is a student, and he is not aware what he is doing when he puts out lots of, let's say, pictures of his partying or some, I wouldn't say unprofessional, but maybe behavior which is not viewed upon too kindly at the time of recruitment.
Yes.
Maybe it would have an impact, and I'm not sure that people are fully aware of that when they enroll and start working on the social media or using social media. But I think gradually they do become aware, maybe the hard way, sometimes. And I think people do think about what they are doing and its impact, but not in the initial stages is what I think.
Okay. So what are the challenges for a corporate body or an individual when they make a personal brand or image through social media?
I would say essentially there are two kinds of challenges. Maybe you can call them the 2 C's. We are marketing guys, so we talk in terms of 4 P's and 2 C's and some things like that. But one is control over the content and second is consistency.
Okay.
So I think consistency comes from whatever you do in whichever social medium, and not only in the social medium, elsewhere in life also, if that information is available to people.
Yes.
Consistency of your character or what you are trying to put out as a image of yourself or a persona. I think that consistency is difficult to maintain sometimes. So that is a challenge. For example, I want to be known as a very serious scholar, and that's not always possible on Facebook because that's a very different kind of a medium. So either I remain away from it, or if I am there, then I try to maintain some consistency with the other image that I have of a scholar which I wanted to project. So that is a challenge. I mean, you might end up looking like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of what do you call it, a split personality sometimes. So there is a challenge in trying to maintain consistency, assuming you're trying to do it.
Yes.
Second, maybe control. So you really don't have a lot of control on what others are going to say to you on the social medium, because I may have 500 people as friends and they are all diverse.
Yes.
So I might be aiming my communication at one particular set of people or a segment out of those 4 or 5 segments that she mentioned. And the member of some other segment might say something which is totally unexpected at the very least, and maybe embarrassing sometimes, or undesirable from my branding perspective. Because my intention in putting out something may have been different, and what I get as a comment or something might be totally at odds with what I am trying to project or convey. So yes, control and consistency, I think, are the 2 major challenges that anybody using social media faces.
But there's also there are chances for multiple image projecting. Like on Facebook, you look like somebody, not look like, but your opinion differ from what you have said about yourself on, say, LinkedIn.
Right.
Like in LinkedIn, you say, I'm a very serious person, I don't like partying or anything like this. And then on Facebook, somebody has tagged your photo in a party.
Yeah.
So that is, I mean, there are chances.
Yes. So it can happen within the medium, it can also happen across media, the
yes.
social media. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Ma'am, how can then one improve his personal brand or image through social media? What can he do? How can, like, there are good and bad consequences. So what exactly one should approach this if he wants to project a very good professional image or even a personal image?
Okay, so we should start by busting a lot of myth here. If we think that, say, Facebook is a private media and all the audience are my friends, and therefore I can share whatever I want to say, that can really have a bad impact on your life if things does not work out for you.
Yes.
So we need to understand that the moment you are in the virtual world, it is not a private world at all.
Yes.
So first point is you need to be conscious of what you're doing. Exactly the way you will behave in a public platform, you need to be somewhat conscious of what you're sharing there.
Yes.
Correct? And this also calls for a lot of discipline about what kind of a person you are. Your guard should not be down the moment you are, say, in Facebook.
Yes.
Correct? So one is being conscious. 2 is, as he was talking, who are the kind of, what are the kind of audience you have? Say, for example, if you know that you have an unruly set of classmates, who want to just pull you when you do something, they can do something really bad for you in your late careers.
Yes.
Correct? And where your colleagues and everybody else is commenting with a lot of respect. So there you could also invite some comments which are very funny.
Yes.
So if earlier itself you have created a somewhat kind of a serious imagery for you because you are in a particular kind of a position, others may not easily cross that particular border. So one is the kind of audience. Understand your audience. Who are your audience? And the third and the most important thing I will say is that do you understand what is the kind of imagery you would like to project and how are you perceived in the social media. So maybe initially when you are projecting yourself in a particular way, you can also take a feedback. It might sound very, very artificial, but it helps people to manage their career well. So today if you look at professional agencies helping early career individuals in the United States, they are also taught how to do personal branding on social media.
Not only the presidents and
prime ministers.
Candidates.
There are schools where they go to. They've been told, okay, this is the way you talk. These are the things which you will share, and this is private and this is public. Okay. So if we have that kind of an idea, then I think there will be a normal guard. And stay away from very controversial topics.
Yes.
So maybe this will help you.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for
You're welcome.
this interview.
You're welcome.
It's
Enjoyed
very
it.
informative.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.